Fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce our sailor in the club, our sailor Rotarian, Colin, who's going to give us a talk on sailing the high seas. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Ray. G'day, guys. Fellow Rotarians, and also we have a visitor, I understand.
Yes, indeed.
I'm going to explain a little bit of a story today. I got these slides together actually last night, and whilst I was doing it, it began to look a little bit like showing you your holiday snaps. And I thought, no, I don't want to bore you with holiday snaps, and put something in a little bit of intro. And so hopefully I put a little bit, perhaps make it a little bit technical, but it will explain quite a bit about sailing for us. And it will end off, well, I assure you, we'll have a little bit of a laugh. And I will add that laugh maybe at John Brown's expense. Because last week I was sailing with our little ship club for the week with John. We had a ball at the time. But anyway, so just to get this going, this picture actually tells a little bit of a story. In fact, this picture tells you that the sort of clothes that you would wear in different, how important the weather is when you go out sailing. Of course, this side, you see I'm all dressed up with, for heavy water sailing. You can see the sail laying over the strong winds. Where this side, that's Diet Coke, by the way. That's So you can see it's nice, smooth sailing. But what I'll do, I'll go into the next side and explain what I'm actually going to cover. This is not going to take a long while to explain this to you. But it's going to explain a little bit about, obviously, the sailing experience and the logbook and how important it is to get the necessary skills to go out onto the seas. It isn't like driving your car, of course, going down the road and you've got traffic lights and you've got arrows pointing which way to go. When you go out on the sea, you haven't got these things. And if the weather blows up, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. So I will cover that with the certification calls, some of the clubs that I have belonged to, and how necessary it is to belong to some of these clubs. A little bit about navigation and where we've sailed. And I was going to actually spend a little bit more time, but we're running a little bit of time today, to actually go into these steps of, that I think is a logical way of actually gaining the knowledge to go out to sea on sailing. And the steps really are, one is to go on a course, a competent crew course as stage one. And what that covers really is, of course, how to do knots and things, and a little bit about sailing and so forth. And then as part of the RYA criteria, you need to do that for, in a classroom, and then go out to sea to do a practical course. And then it leads on to the day skipper. Now, the day skipper is really designed around learning how to be a skipper during the day, not during the night, during the day. So you only learn the skills that are necessary in daylight. And then you go on to the yacht master. The yacht master, of course, would cover you off the coastal day and night. So now you're going into various beacons and lights and collision regulations and so forth. Ocean master, of course, is as it says. If you're going to travel the oceans, then you've got to really know your navigation. Otherwise you could easily get lost. You can't see land, in other words, of course. Right? Okay, and the sea survival, which I was just talking about, I've got to tell you a little story about my importance of how I feel about the sea survival. And it was something that I actually experienced. And first of all, I say this because I feel that anyone and everyone that ever gets on a boat, or a cruiser or whatever, gets on the sea, should go on some sort of course like this sea survival course. And I did this at Warshash campus near in Southampton. And why I say that is because you learn practical things. And I could tell you just one practical thing, that I hope you never have to use this, but it actually works. There I am in a swimming pool, and I've got all my heavy wetsuits on, Wellington boots, in the water with a life jacket, and we had a life raft, and there was two young girls in the life raft. And I was instructed to be unconscious, and they had to get me into the dinghy. Right? Now you wonder how they'd do that. Well, all they'd done was they turned me around, they pushed me under, because I'm unconscious, aren't I? They pushed me under, right? Up I go, down I go, right? On the third stroke, stand back, and I should pop straight out of the water. And that actually works. because it's the buoyancy in your jacket that does that. And it's just one little practical thing about how you get somewhere. Right? But to lead on to what they actually done on this sea survival course is they've been many years to perfect this part of this sea survival. We were all in teams, and he had literally wore us out, the instructor, on all this learning how to do things properly in the water and how to turn dinghies upside down. And he said, okay, so you're going to go into each room. He says, and what you're going to do is that when you hear the whistles of a ship sinking, which is 7 short blasts, 1 long one, so when you hear that, you're going to come out, he says, and get in your dinghy. Well, he didn't tell us what. Right. We wouldn't. Oh, first of all, he said, he went to each one of us in his room, he says, now you've got a broken leg, you've got a broken leg, you've got a broken leg, now you've got to look after him. So we went into our room, and then the whistles came, doors sprung open. As we came into this swimming pool, it was pitch black. And there was hose pipes pouring. The water was swaying like this. The noises, the hoots, as though you imagined the ship was going down. Well, the first thing I done was I said to this guy, I said, you haven't got a broken leg no more. Right? So we got to get in the dinghy. And we got in that dinghy and everyone was sick. So that's an horrible bit, everyone was sick. Right? Because of the canvas, everything they created. It was a horrific experience. Right? But coming away from that afterwards, you'd think, well, you'd know how to handle that situation if ever it occurred. Right? But anyway, so that's just one of the types of courses that RYA do. Oh, this. Okay. I didn't put that bit in, didn't I? Yeah. But that's about 35 years old. That's a powerboat. And when I was in Australia, I joined the Australia Volunteer Coast Guard. These are logbook certificates, and what that actually means is that each one of these, each one will be a trip that you sailed, and the skipper on that occasion of that boat, he's actually signed off how many hours, how many days, how many night hours you did, and so forth. So you actually build up your hours, and you build up sufficient to then to go on to gain a licence, a recognised certificate licence to skip up your own boat. And then when you've done that, of course, these are the clubs that I have belonged to at some time or another. The Barclays Bank Sailing Club, that's about 25 years ago, and that was when I first started sailing. So my experience prior to that was all on powerboats, playing out the water. Well, the Barclays Bank Sailing Club, I was very fortunate because I was on an RYA training course in our Havering College here, and the instructor was a bank manager, and he said to me one weekend, would you like to go sailing? I said, okay. He said, but you've got to make out, he says, you're a bank manager. So I went on this, for this sailing this weekend with the Barclays Bank Sailing Club as a bank manager. And after a short while they found out I wasn't, of course, right, but it didn't affect anything. Now, but that Barclays Bank Sailing Club was a magnificent club. But what happened was health and safety rules come in about 20 odd years ago, and they couldn't, as a bank, have their own licensed type of club. So they didn't actually fold it down, but they gave it to members and said, form your own club. And it was never the same again with it. But this BOSS isn't actually a sailing club, it's an organisation of a school of sailing. And it's something which you easily go on the web, and anyone can go on, and it's very safe. They find out what sort of knowledge level you are in sailing, and they'll make sure you go on that sort of boat or that sort of trip, or would only go out if the weather was suitable for you. The Little Ship Club, which is the current one, and you may have noticed I'm talking all current stuff here now, not 15 years of all grey suits sitting around that was said a little bit earlier on. At the meeting last night, was it? Mm-hmm. Right, okay. Well, the Little Ship Club is along the embankment, and it got its fame actually from its skill set, because during the First World War and the Second World War, it was actually training naval officers, so the skill set was there. However, I will add that was all the old school, all the sextons and charts and so forth, and of course all them not really necessary today with all the instrumentation that we've got. So let's look at that and how it's changed. Well, the section, I suppose, we'll know what the section is. And the charts. But I want to talk about, really, because I haven't got spend time, I really want to talk about some of the advances that are going on now within this world. Let's talk about the VHF. Now, the VHF was always something, of course, that for Mayday or Pam Pam, but people use it, of course, by switching to different channels. In other words, you've got a yacht over there somewhere, we're all within distance, and we can switch to channel 42 or 15 or whatever you like, and we can talk to one another. Right? Recently, they've brought in the AIS. Now, this is something special, the AIS. Right? And in fact, I can see the day where it will be compulsory, right? That all boats will have this AIS. At the moment, when you register your boat, your VHF, you give the dimensions of your boat and so forth, and what type of boat it is, or if it could be a liner, it could be a ship, right? It could be an aircraft carrier. But at least you are registering what type of craft that VHF is going on. Well, now you've got the AIS, and what that means is you can link it into a computer on your boat, or you can link it into your radar if you've already got one on your boat. And what that means is when you're sailing along, which is very important in the fog, to be able to identify if it's a big ship coming close by, or a small ship. And what happens is with the AIS, you look on your radar, and it's going bip, 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 you can actually touch it, and it will identify what that craft is. It will say what direction it's going, what speed it's going, the size of it, if it's a passenger ship or it's a cargo. It didn't tell you what cargo it's got on board, if that's been released. So this is very important new system that being introduced, which is very easily within reach now of a small craft at the expense involved. Instrumentation, well, I can only describe that really as like your sat nav in your car. But there was a time when I first started sailing, when the night before you couldn't have a drink. You sat down, you had to be sober because you had to work out A to B where you was going the following day. And you have to do all the calculations from tables, or your tidal streams, wind direction, and so forth. And then in the morning, when you set off in the morning, you had to get your charts out again, and you had to look what you've already drawn, and you get a fix, right, where you actually are, and do that every half hour or every hour that you're set. So it's a lot of work. But now, of course, with one of these, well, you know, you have a good drink the night before, you ain't got to worry. And when you wake up in the morning, you say, where are we? Right? I want to go to there. And you just set in your waypoints. And sure enough, it will show you all how to do it, all your calculations for it. So life has got tremendously easy through instrumentation. Meteorology is most certainly a major point. You might think, where's that link within navigation? Well, I can tell you that when I sailed across the Atlantic, we made a big thing of meteorology. Because the good point is that when you're on the ocean, you can determine the weather long term more so than you can when you're on the land. And in fact, we was planning 2 weeks ahead, and sure enough, it was. So meteorology told us what direction we had to go, whether we went this way, that way, or straight through the middle. What we was going to avoid with the highs and the lows, and the warm fronts, cold fronts that were coming through. So meteorology is very important, I think, with navigation. Oh, this, I just had to show you this one. I was in France recently, and I met a guy there, French, who spoke very good English, that was actually telling us, who sails a lot himself alone, and which is a problem, of course, because if you're alone and you want to go to sleep, you know, you could run into something. Well, this is an alarm that he's got, and this was run by a little battery. Right? So on a sailing boat, it's important that you don't use any power from your batteries. So on a little battery, and it's and it can set the distance, and he can go asleep, and knowing full well if anything comes very close to him, it will wake him up. Okay, well, again, it's back to what I've done actually across the Atlantic, and all of this I will add is with the Little Ship Club. And the Little Ship Club is a marvellous one, which John has been along a few times, and Jim Haynes has been also along to it, and maybe some others here that have actually been along there as well. But let's just look at the goal of the Little Ship Club. it is today to bring together skippers and crew. That's really what it's designed to do. Designed in the sense of, imagine a situation that you're a very wealthy man, Jeff.
No.
Right? You've got a lovely,
Congratulations.
you've got a lovely big yacht, and it's your passion that you want to go out sailing. But of course you can't do it on your own. So then you either hire a crew, and the relationship is never ever the same, of course, when you hire a crew, or you meet like-minded people. And the Little Ship Club actually does that. It allows you to go there, have a drink at the bar, and you meet like-minded people. And next thing you know, there's teams of people that get together. And I'm in a very fortunate situation actually, because always around about November, December, I have the opportunity to plan the next year anywhere in the world to sail, anywhere in the world. And all these people, these members, we've got a website there that actually shows you where they're going, what they're doing, and you just go on these trips. And then so it's allowed me to do all of these sort of things that you see there. Okay, this was actually, we had someone here recently, didn't we? John Cogley, I think his name was. It was actually a speaker on that actual tall ship. John Craddock, you was president then, and Ken, he actually gave the thanks to the speaker, if I remember rightly. Well, this one, it's mainly designed for children, if you remember much about what he said on that occasion, but they do have an adults trip a couple of times a year, which I went on. And that adults one, there was the people that went on board were, they were adventurous, it's the only way I can describe it. People, people climbed Mount Everest and had one leg or one arm, and they still went and done all the just incredible people. But there's actually I'm up the top there. That's the Royal. Now the Royal is right up the top south. And when I first got on that boat, I thought, no way in the world am I going to go up there. In fact, we all said the same. But after a while, you just, you get used to it. And it isn't dangerous because you're tied on. And if you're going to fall, no one fell, but if you're going to fall, at least you're strapped on, right? But if there's one remarkable memory that I've got of that sail, and that is something that you may or may not be aware of, that I did on this trip, was when it was from Barbados. We sailed from Barbados, about 10 days I think it was, and when we come back from Barbados, we were all fully trained. We all had our own watch, red, white, blue or whatever, and there was something very special that happened when we came in to Barbados, and they told us what was going to happen. Apparently quite a few hundred years ago, there was a situation that you have a big gunship and I'm a harbour master. I can see you out there at the sea. I don't know whether you're going to attack me or not, whether you're friendly or... But so what you do is that you put all your men aloft, so I can see all your men, all up in the top, all up in the rigging. Then you have someone go round the ship, bang, 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 set off all the cannons. I now know, looking at you, that you can't fill your cannons. All your men are at the top. So I know that you're friendly. So I let you in. And so we did that. And it was really a magnificent feeling. When we came into Barbados, we never had actual cannons, of course, right? But when we came into Barbados, there's all the cruise ships were all in there. And we all walked up, as you do, and we all walked out, all on the yard arms. And then the music went off, the bang, bang, bang. Well, all the cruise ships in the harbour there, Barbados, were all pulling there, and everyone was up top waving, and it was really, really something special, that event there. So I do recommend that if anyone wants to go on one of them trips. Oh, these are just some photos. As I said earlier on, when I started putting this together last night, it began to look like showing, your oddly photos. but as you can see, that's the one swimming at the bottom right. That's in the Mediterranean. I don't think I've ever actually done it around our coast. Got off the boat into the water. But the top right-hand one, believe it or not, that's in the middle of the Atlantic, and there was just no wind at all. And you can see we've got the spinnaker out. We had that for 2 days, only during daylight. We always take the spinnakers down at the night time. It's too dangerous to have the spinnakers out at the night time. Again, more photos. And there's the section being used at the bottom there. That was crossing the Atlantic. Top right there is walking the gangplank, and we're going to see someone else walk the gangplank in a minute. Right. Oh right, okay. Well, this is in the Caribbean. The bottom there, that's me actually in my life jacket, and I was just about to fly home. And I often wonder whether my life jacket really would work if it was exposed to water, because it's an automatic one. When you fall in, it just explodes and blows up. So I said, okay, would you, to the skipper, I'd like to...
doing a test on his life jacket. We're now running. Right, well, here we go. Let's see what So here we are, this lovely Caribbean beach. And what are our people doing? Testing those things. Let's just have a quick pan around of the beach.
More photos of course. And this, actually, this craft I'm on there, that's a 54-footer. It was a very large, very nice size yacht actually. It's a Moody 54-footer. Yeah, literally everything gone. Never a dishwasher though, unfortunately, John. Oh, here we are. We've got John walking the gangplank.
It was coming back from the pub though, wasn't it?
Well, well, I've got to tell that one. This is our first night there, and of course, you know, when you go on holiday, I don't know, I always sort of celebrate the first night there, and John was in the same mood as well. And we come up, well, we've all finished about midnight, but we stayed behind, and we was on the shore, and we had a few more drinks. So in the end, we've got to go, just me and John now, we've got to find the boat. It was pitch black. Well, we had trouble finding the boat, let alone getting on the boat. And what happened was there was these young fellas right, on this boat, and they're watching us. And you can hear them beginning to laugh. And so eventually we found the boat, but now we've got to walk the gangplank and get on the boat. So, which leads on to, you're just going out for the night, I know you're going to get... Oh, and it's John behind the wheel, will I know I keep mentioning you there, John, but it may be helpful to understand that John's only ever been on a sailing boat once before. Is that right, John?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So this was all really quite a new experience. And wow, there's John. On the wheel. And here we are. Actually, I forget where that was. That Rab?
Rab, yeah.
Yeah. John, get ready for action.
It's hard toning, but...
We're putting up the mainsail, are you? And we ate on board mostly lunchtimes, not evenings. We found that wherever we pulled up, there was always a restaurant somewhere. We found some lovely restaurants.
A team of four swim ashore so that we can pull the boat on the ropes.
The output. This is John, the chef.
No, we all survive.
Absolutely not.
Come out for a liquid nourishment.
Oh, do me Johnny go, come rock and roll me over.
Oh, do me Johnny
Anyway, if you've got any questions, I'd love to be able to try and answer them for you.
How do you crew the boat? I mean,
8, of which there were 5 Rotarians. Incredible, wasn't it? And in fact, 2 of the Rotarians on board also belonged to the yachting fraternity of the Rotary organisation, and one of them, well, they had a high-ranking position in their clubs. But on some of the other yachts, there was some, perhaps only 4 were on board. But the maximum really 8. The craft we were on would hold 12, but not comfortable. It did hold us comfortably on board. In fact, John had his own cabin, I had my own cabin, so it was pretty good actually.
And we had a guest bed, didn't we? In each cabin. The top bunk.
Did you ever get compulsory identification, bearing in mind there's modern day pirates around and all this sort of...
Well, that's why I say it would be a good idea to have it compulsory. Because if you've got this on the AIS on a craft, what it also means is that the Coast Guard can actually identify what craft is travelling and could find smugglers and drugs and so forth. But yes, that is also a worry when it comes to pirates. In fact, when I was sailing in the Caribbean, which you might say is a bit of a problem, but most of the islands are quite safe around the Caribbean, but there are some that are not quite so safe. And if you go near them, you're not allowed to carry guns or anything, of course, but what we had as a contingency plan was the rockets. You know, where they fire these parachute-type rockets that explode, well, we made sure we got plenty of them on board. And of course, if any pirate sort of boat or whatever, anything dangerous would get near us, we let them know we had them. You know, I think you'd later have one of them fired at you. Huh?
Anyone? Yes,
Say, just to reinforce what you say, if you, as a matter of interest on the identification thing, if you go to the Lizard, you can go around the lighthouse situation there. They've actually got one of those there. You can look at all the ships sailing.
Yes, that's right. That's
by
right.
pressing the sheet, it comes up with, you say, the name, the cargo, the speed, destination. It's quite interesting. It's all laid out for the Coast Guard.
Well, I've had situations where, quite a few years ago, when we never had all this instrumentation, you know, let's go back 25 years. It's only 25 years ago. It's just incredible, isn't it? 25 years ago, and there were occasions where I sailed across the channel, and all of a sudden you hit fog. It wasn't predicted, you know, but you just hit it, and it still happens today, of course. Right? Well, it's nothing worse than being in a small little craft when there's fog about, especially when you hear and you don't know where it is and you don't know what it is. Right? Well, on a small yacht, you've got to identify yourself, right? And it's usually by 2 blasts, one after another, and then another 2, and so forth. Right? Well, on board this, I don't know if I should tell this story. on this one occasion, I was on this boat, and we had a trumpet. Right? So they said, "Okay, Colin, your turn. You know, here's the trumpet." And so they gave me the trumpet, and I'm blowing, and it was. I said, "No, it's something jammed." They said, "Oh, that was from the last trip." They said, "The last guy who used that was sick in it." I'm sorry about that one. I can edit that down. But of course, now with this AIS, the beauty is that you're in the fog. And I will add, we have used this. I've used this a couple of times recently when I crossed the channel. We've actually used it, and we've seen some dangerous things as well. We've actually picked up a small power boat, right, that was just racing, you know, 20, 25 knots through the water. You know, he would only have the same sort of sight that we would have, right, on this site, and the same sort of things that we could see here. But this is, you know, some of the damn stupid things some people actually do on the sea. But that was very helpful, being able to look around, to see a safe route to take. Yeah.
Well, Colin, I'm not sure if you've converted many people to join this, but your usual wonderful self in describing the trip, you obviously enjoy it. It's come across with what you were saying and what you've shown us. And I'd like the Rotarians to thank Colin in our usual manner.
Can I just finish that off then by saying, yes, it's a passion. And it's a passion that whenever I go out to sea, I feel that wind rushing through my ear.